RUSCISM, the darkest idea of the 21st century, which has become the driving force for the Russian president, the Russian army, and the Russian people. What is RUSCISM, and how did it emerge? How did the world miss its birth and help it evolve? The word first appeared in 2014. Ukrainians came up with it as an accurate abbreviation for Russian fascism. After Russia's occupation of Crimea, Ukrainians were the first to realize that the whole of Russia is infected with fascism. But the world wasn't ready to believe it. The war Putin started in Europe in 2022 proves that Russism has totally won in Russia, and now is threatening the world. Russism, in a one-party system without real elections. It means a cult of personality of Putin, who has ruled for more than 20 years. It's the idea that Russian people are somehow divine, and so have exclusivity over other nations. It means denial of the right of existence for Ukrainians, and these ideas are propagated in the media and in churches throughout Russia. Russism is militarization and expansion. Russians support the invasion of Ukraine and threaten the world with nuclear weapons. Russism is the domination of the crowd and elimination of any importance of minorities. It means mass gatherings around new totalitarian rituals and symbols. How did Russia become like this? Why didn't the free world see Russia's growing fascism over the last decade? Russism is a revanchist ideology. During the Soviet Union, Russians thought of the USSR as their empire, like in the days of the imperial czars. They felt this disintegration was a huge defeat by their enemies, the West, and it had to be avenged. During the economic decline of the 90s, memories of the imperial past kept Russians proud. Populists explained poverty and lack of achievements as attacks by a conspiracy of superpowers in the West. All this while the West believed Russia was reforming, becoming liberal, building a market economy. It even forced Ukraine to give its nuclear weapons to Russia under security guarantees that were later ignored. Vladimir Putin came to power under revanchist slogans and started the Second Chechen War. But the West wanted to see him as a young liberal leader of democratic Russia. It didn't see the genocide of the Chechen people by Russia's army, and it ignored the hybrid wars supported by Russia in Moldova and Azerbaijan. The free world thought that doing business with Russia was the best way to prevent a resurgence of its instinctive authoritarianism. They thought that a wealthy society meant a democratic society. But Putin used billions of dollars from oil and gas revenues to strengthen special services, rearm his army, and establish control over the media, and then instigate propagandist mass culture, including co-opting Victory Day, May 9th, Russia's main holiday filled with military parades. That day, celebrating the World War II victory, has been turned into a central uniting idea of Russian society. The popular motto in Russia today is "We can repeat it," meant now as a threat to the West, their perceived enemy. Putin encouraged Russians' dreams of restoring the old Soviet borders, beginning with Ukraine. State propaganda declared that Ukrainians and Belarusians are all part of the Russian people. Those who supported Ukraine's independence and national statehood were named Nazis. And then came the invasion of Crimea in 2014, when Ukraine did not manage to ensure the withdrawal of Russia's Black Sea Fleet from its territory. Now, Russian media has been working on forming an image of the external enemy, NATO. The rapprochement of Ukraine and Georgia with the West was perceived as a life-threatening event for Russia. The West was pictured as immoral and weak, unlike spiritual Orthodox Russia. Russians were ecstatic when in 2008 their army invaded Georgia under an invented pretext. Western reaction was predictably sluggish. The Kremlin understood that Russians liked military force and the West would do nothing to impede it. That's why when Russia quickly occupied Crimea in 2014, the level of Putin's support broke records. Even liberal Russians and political opponents of the regime supported the occupation. They were ready to forgive everything to return the territories of the empire. One people, one empire, one leader, just like 300 years ago. After February's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, the last dissenters left Russia. The rest of the Russian people are blinded with Russism and can't see it. These Russians support the war against Ukraine while ignoring the contradictory justifications. Russians are told they started war to prevent war. They deny the existence of Ukrainians as a people and think they should be eliminated. Russians think they're liberating Russian-speaking Ukrainians. When they see that Ukrainians are not happy about that, they accuse them of treason. The peak of absurdity is that Russists are convinced they are at war with Nazi fascists led by a Jewish president. And then, according to that logic, countries which don't support Russia must also be fascists. Russism is turning into a global threat. The only country besides North Korea making direct nuclear weapons threats to the world is Russia. It seems Russism's fundamental ideology allows for the destruction of our entire planet if the world refuses to live by its rules. The world has been ignoring the threat of Russism for a long time. No longer can it be ignored. Russism is an enemy not only for independent Ukraine, it's an enemy for the whole of mankind and our strive for freedom. The free world will certainly win over Russism this time, but this evil will try to re-emerge. Humanity must find a way to prevent Russism from taking root in future generations, or face even worse threats in the years to come. Russia and fascism must be stopped now.